Welcome to another episode of the Smiles Ahead podcast, community style, where we have some awesome guests today. Morgan and Caroline, thanks for joining us from Vestique Boutique.
Happy to be here.
Absolutely. So we always start this podcast. It's all about making our community smile, and y'all certainly do that with nice fashion and clothes and all that good stuff. So why don't you just start by kind of telling me how this started and what y'all do, and kind of introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah,
Want to jump in, Caroline?
Sure. So Morgan and I met at NC State. We won't go Wolfpack. We won't name the date because we're old, but we met freshman year in college at State. Instant great friends. Fast forward, we graduated. Both had desk jobs. Didn't necessarily love what we were doing. Knew we wanted to try something else. Knew we weren't meant to be stuck behind a desk all day. To believe it or not, Vestique actually wasn't our first business idea, but it was the most,
most viable.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we actually each went to our parents and asked for $5,000 each to start. So we started very, very small. Started out of a spare bedroom in Morgan's house. And it was all just e-com to start out.
Okay.
And I'd like to mention that neither one of our parents, like both of our parents, are just very middle class. Like we didn't come from anything.
Money.
Right.
Everybody always is like,
So this was a big investment, the $5,000.
They got daddy's money, and that's how they made it. And that is not the case with us at all.
That actually might be how a lot of people get started,
Yeah.
but not for us. So my dad even joked. Both my parents were educators, and he joked. He was like, "Oh, this is $5,000. I'll never get that." Here we go. But the joke's on them. Because we hustled, we grinded, we went to our first market, we bought as much as we possibly could with, $5,000 and saved, obviously we had to save some for shipping and all that good stuff, but we had our 8 to 5 jobs, we came home every night, fulfilled online orders, and then eventually knew we had to get it out of our house. So we opened our first brick and mortar in Raleigh, North Carolina, and fast forward 13 years, we've got 12 retail stores now. That's awesome. Still, Vestique.com is the backbone of our business, and we're continuing to grow. So
That's great. So a little bit about that on people that might be interested in entrepreneurship and stuff like that. What year was this when you were out of your bedroom? And
this was 2010.
2010. Okay, so
2010,
e-commerce was big, but it wasn't huge like it is now, right?
There were actually not a ton of online clothing boutiques,
which is really why we started it, because we felt like there was just such a hole in the market.
And the main ones were super expensive. We hit the affordable market.
We weren't making a ton of money out of college, and we loved clothes, and we loved to get dressed up, and we were going out, so we were like, gosh, where can we shop?
Yeah.
There really aren't that many options, which is why we did it.
So curious on that, did y'all have someone help you with the IT side? Because to me, I would be totally lost. Like, hey, let's make a website where they can order online, and I'd be afraid that orders went through and they're not fulfilled. And how did all that go down?
Yeah, we did have somebody help us on the IT side a little bit. I mean, we basically made our first website in PowerPoint.
Oh, nice.
It was the most basic of websites. Like a 5-year-old could probably have done it. But then as we kind of scaled our business, we got on a different platform,
but it got us to where we needed to be.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's
we
the
just
thing.
basically needed to click add to cart at that time.
Okay.
And honestly, a lot of our business, I don't know if Caroline mentioned this or not, but we were doing a lot of trunk shows at the time to grow our business, to get the word out about Vestique. So really, we weren't even using the website that much. We were basically checking people out on a calculator, being like, "All right, girl, you $46 for these 2 tops."
Yeah, we had people coming over almost every night. It turned into having a trunk show at her house almost every night, and then us also throwing clothes in our car and driving to people's apartments all over the triangle.
That we went to a Carolina, a UNC Chapel Hill, Carolina trunk show, one of our first nights, and I think we made $600, and we were like, oh my gosh.
Awesome. I mean, selling $30 dresses too.
Right.
That's
every
a lot
girl
of dresses.
there, even some of their the mom that was there, she was buying stuff, and we were like, oh my god, this could be something.
Yeah.
And then
it was cool to see how excited people were about the clothes, and I think that we were just really good at picking out, because we were picking out exactly what we wanted to wear.
Yeah.
And we still do that today. So.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's awesome. It sounds like I always talk about people that always talk about starting a business and all that, and they're like, well, what should I do first? What should I do second? It sounds like there's no shortcuts.
And we had no idea.
8 to 5, and then you had to drive to trunk shows, and you might sell something. You might get $600. You might get nothing.
Oh, yeah. And there were a lot of times where we did so much work and we would make like $100 and we're like, oh, this is so much work, and it was such a bust.
We went to the Zeta house at State one time, and it was just like we had both taken like the day off of work. We like loaded up our Hondas. We're like trying to get, and it just wasn't like what we thought it was going to be. So we're like, all right,
that's okay.
Yeah. So getting started into it, like, just going right into the business, getting inventory and stuff like that. Was that something that y'all had studied before, or you just went to people and said, like, I'm always interested to know like how stores will be like, hey, we're just going to open, and they have tons of sizes and all this stuff, and how you get it from
totally figuring it out as we went along. I remember, I will never forget, Morgan and I were so nervous to go to market the first time. Like, we were like petrified. Because a lot of people reach out to us and, ask us all the questions, which we're an open book, but we never did that. We were like, we want to figure this out on our own.
Yeah.
We're going to, we've made a lot of mistakes, but we're going to figure it out as we go through. And so we walked to our first, booth at the trunk show, and we were like, or not the trunk show, at the trade show. And we were like, okay, how does this work? The guy, and he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, how much do we buy of this? Like, what's the smallest amount we can get of this top? And he's like, okay, 6 pieces. Like, what sizes? They just kind of walked us through it, and then we figured it out. But we really never asked for much advice at all. We just kind of figured it out as we went along.
Built the plane while you flyed it, right?
Yeah. So we're like, okay, this is how this works.
That's how it works.
So I remember every time after we would buy from somebody, we would go sit down, we would crunch the numbers, and be like, okay, we've got $2,000 left. What do we need? What do we want? So we started it just so
and
small.
We wanted like a certain amount of dresses. We wanted the site to look like we had a lot.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, we need to get at least like 7 dresses, 3 tops, this. And so that's what we did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. We always talk about that too. When you're small, you need to act like you're big.
Yeah.
When you're big, you kind of want to start acting small because you want to be like, hey, we still got the customer service and all this stuff. So
that is so accurate, especially with y'all's business too.
Yeah. You still want that personal touch, but
absolutely.
you also
that's why Kira and I spend a lot of time in the stores. We still want the FaceTime with the customers because we don't ever want them to think, oh, it's like Revolve.
Right.
It's gotten to the point where they don't even care about us.
You never see the owners anymore.
Yeah.
Who knows? We still try to stay really relevant. We still try to do a lot on social, and again, we're doing all the buying, and we love to be in the stores. Just interacting with the customers.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
That's great. Was there a? I always like to ask, was there a moment? Maybe the $600 moment, but was there a moment when y'all were like, oh my God, this actually worked? Because, a lot of people start businesses and they're like, hey, is this going to go? Hey, yeah, this is a great idea. Let's get going. And it might fade off. It might not. But you were like, hey, this is our career now. We can do this.
I think it was for me, and you can answer too, Caroline, but it was definitely the grand opening of our first store on Oberlin Road.
It was wild.
To see that, yeah.
We didn't have employees. It was just me and Caroline. And our moms and Caroline's grandmommy at the time.
And we had a photographer there who ended up she working the fitting rooms all day.
It was so packed. Like the store, the line was like down the street, and then it never stopped all day long. Like
all we did was stand there and check customers out
I don't think
all day.
we used
I don't even
think
we went to the bathroom. We didn't eat anything.
Definitely didn't eat. Like it was just, and I remember my mom just tears of joy, being like, "What in the world just happened?"
That store got ransacked.
Caroline's 90-year-old grandmommy.
Yeah,
because she thought she was just coming to support Caroline.
Yeah,
we were on the floor, grandmommy.
You need to put these back. We got to get these out of the fitting rooms. And it was just that was the moment where I was like, "Oh my gosh, Caroline, we did it."
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. And since then, it's pretty wild because
grand openings kind of always give me that feeling.
But that was our first, and that was definitely probably our biggest. But every time we have a grand opening of a store, even in a completely new market, we opened Richmond, Virginia, which was our first Virginia store. And Morgan and I, we're in the hotel room the night before, and this was a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh my gosh, we're not gonna have a line. Nobody even knows about us here. Was this a mistake?
We were
I'm just
trying
so
to tell
scared.
the waiters the night before. We're like, okay,
come
we're opening a store tomorrow.
The first 50 customers get a goodie bag or something, and we had just at least probably 100 people wrapped around the room when we got there. So we were like, oh my gosh, and it makes us cry every time. We're like, oh my gosh.
So curious, how do y'all get the word out to get 100 people for people that are doing grand openings too?
Mainly
Social.
We don't do a lot of paid advertising still to this day.
Nice.
A lot of our growth has been organic. Honestly, grassroots word of mouth.
Yeah, we're so grateful for social media.
Yeah,
it's been huge for our business.
It's been I know that works real well, and I know also with when you talk about the first store, and then everyone assumes like, oh, they got to 12, like everything was just real easy, but it typically goes. We found out by doing Mini 2 that you get one going, and then you find other problems. And then
my gosh.
scaling, because y'all went from y'all two to how many employees y'all have now?
Got over 100.
100. So that's like, that's huge. I mean, how was that transition? I know it took a little bit of time, but it sounds like it's been still pretty quick.
That can be a tough part of the job too, is like managing employees. That's probably one of the parts of the job that we like the least.
Yeah.
Because, we got into this for the fashion and for the clothes, and we love talking to people. So we just like loved working the floor together, and we still do, obviously. But managing people can definitely be a challenge.
You asked us about like the IT thing. We have had no help with HR.
No.
Oh, wow.
Us.
Good for y'all.
Hiring, firing, everything.
It's HR and really finance up until pretty recently when we got a bookkeeper. Like, we were doing all of that, and those were not our fortes. Like, that's still not my forte. Like, I do not want to know about insurance, but we do, and it's just like things that we've kind of just managed and one day want to definitely
Well, good for y'all with the human resource part. That is very difficult. We had to get that off the plate quick. Give somebody.
It is a challenge.
Yeah, especially especially when you have brick and mortars in different locations. We were talking before about having different places, but having good people, maybe some district managers or regional managers.
Oh, absolutely. Amazing district manager that travels around to our stores. I know he asked me before we started, how often do you visit the stores? And obviously, like the ones that are close by, we see almost every day. Mm-hmm. But some of the ones that are a little bit further away, we each have 3 kids. So it can be hard to travel and, I'll put all that onto our husbands, especially when they have full-time jobs. We don't have nannies. So, it's a lot. We're juggling and we're wearing a lot of hats. So I'm actually headed to the Atlanta store today, and I'm really excited. We got a new manager there, and I'm excited to spend some time with her. So
Cool. Yeah, and I meant to ask this before when we were talking about college and stuff, but did y'all study fashion, or is this something that just came natural to you? Study business? I
studied communication.
So okay.
It is kind of relevant.
Maybe that's why you don't have to have the HR. You can communicate.
Right, we used it a lot in the beginning. Like, I was writing a lot of press releases and trying to get, free press for Vestique, but otherwise, no fashion.
Okay. So y'all
I went to school to be my major is business education. So I was going to be like a business teacher. Yeah. So I definitely got a lot of those classes into, entrepreneurship classes and stuff like that. But for the most part, it was just kind of figuring it out as we go along.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's funny because NC State has a great textiles.
Textiles.
It's got a huge, people really die to get in that fashion program, and we went to NC State, but I didn't even know about it.
It would have been so much fun. I actually knew, I was on the dance team at State. One of my good friends, Ashley Richard, was in that program, and it was really cool because I remember her making some designs, and then they would have fashion shows, and I was like, oh gosh, Morgan and I would have thrived.
We would have done well.
I feel like once you go to school, you're like, it's too late to change my major at this point.
Yeah.
We're just gonna keep the path.
We know fashion. We'll do it. We're good. So I won't keep y'all too much longer. I know y'all are super busy, but I did want to mention, with all the success y'all have had, all the brick and mortars, the good online and all that stuff, y'all have found a good way to really give back. And Dr. Welchel, my partner, has always talked about y'all's charities and all that type of stuff. Y'all want to talk a little bit about how y'all like to give back?
Absolutely. Our biggest philanthropy is the Channing's Joy Foundation, which is a foundation that provides money and funding to families with children with autism. So one of our best friends, she actually worked for us. She was one of our, she was our first full-time employee on payroll. She actually had to leave the job because 7 years ago she had a son, and he was diagnosed really early on with pretty advanced autism. So she actually started the foundation. When did she, I think 2 years ago, maybe? 2 or 3 years ago. We've been involved since the very beginning because we want to use our platform for good, obviously. But this past year, the last 2 years, we've done a charity fashion show in the fall. And this past year, we raised over $100,000 for Channing's Joy Foundation through fashion. So it's really cool to be able to do that.
Yeah.
For our friend and for the community, because it is such an underserved community. I know you guys try to do as much as you can too. And we really appreciate Dr. Brittany.
Yeah.
The last 2 years donating braces.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's been the hottest item
It
on
has
the
been.
silent auction both years.
Yes.
That's funny. I don't think we can mention names, but my buddy from high school is the one that got it. So I got to see him come in. And so he was like, I was like, yeah, you coming in for braces? And so he talked about the fashion show. I don't know if he was there, if his wife was there, whatever.
Yeah,
But they won the silent auction. And, but I know that goes so far. And, you know, it's so nice of y'all to have success and then be able to give back to something else like
Absolutely.
that.
This year we're hoping to make it even bigger than years past. So.
Yeah, we were blown away by the first year, which was 2 years ago when we had the fashion show. I think we raised around $20,000, which was
awesome.
incredible.
Yeah.
But then last year it was like 120. So
just keeps
we can't
on.
wait to see
Yeah.
what we'll do even next year.
Well, for everybody listening, we'll put that out there. We'll put links and all that good stuff.
Absolutely.
And
That
would be
we'll get the word out there for you.
I'm saying you guys will be back with more braces, right?
That's right. We'll be back with braces, retainers. We'll do some whitening. We'll put some extra stuff on there. You
I'm
know,
gonna go for the whitening.
all the
I know,
fun
right?
stuff. Yeah.
Hey, our kids will be needing the braces.
That's it. Yeah, y'all might be
Brittany all the
doing it
time.
yourself.
I'm like, you keep donating, I'll be
Yeah,
bidding.
I'll be
for
bidding.
years.
That's it. Well, cool. Well, last question. What's next? Is this kind of y'all have anything on the horizon? I know y'all just opened a store in Richmond, so you're just focused on
We actually
getting that one going.
3 in 2023. So
Oh, okay.
we are taking a breather.
Don't sound like
now.
us. Oh man, we're doing the same thing.
Taking a little bit of a breather, and we're actually trying to focus more on e-com this year, growing that team strategically and trying to really grow sales there because that's where there's a glass ceiling.
The
you know?
sky's the limit with
Yeah.
e-com, you know.
So we are really, we're excited about that. And we actually just opened up a TikTok shop. I don't know if any of your listeners are on TikTok, but Vestique has a TikTok shop now.
We go
so-
live there pretty often.
Yep.
So we actually sell clothes on TikTok.
Yep.
Okay.
It's really fun.
So TikTok shop. That's just you can shop on TikTok.
You can shop on TikTok.
Okay.
It's kind of like an Amazon.
I've been
or
told I
another
need to get on
sales channel.
TikTok more and more. So maybe
you
y'all are
go.
the yeah.
Do some really cool stuff
Yeah.
on TikTok.
So maybe y'all will encourage me to do more. And more.
There you go.
Definitely.
Get
But
the
yeah, that's
motivation.
kind of our focus for 2024.
Well, very good. Well, I really appreciate y'all coming on, taking some time, and we'll put all your information in the show notes and send that out to our audience. And
Awesome.
it
Thank you for
helps.
having us.
Absolutely. All right, guys. See you next time for another episode of the Smiles Ahead podcast. Thanks for listening to the Smiles Ahead podcast, powered by Burrow, Welchel, and Culp Orthodontics. Be sure to leave a rating, hit that subscribe button, and if you have more questions, you can reach out to me directly at sam@bwcortho.com. That's sam@bwcortho.com. You can also visit our website, bwcortho.com, and we will be happy to answer any questions you might have.